Hello there and welcome back to my YouTube channel and to today's video all about what are the key SBR ACCA topics that you need to know for your examination. Now, I'm kindly joined again today by with the lovely Tom Clendon. I know, by and with Tom, it's all right, but I've stolen your introduction now. Introduce yourself to the viewers. Who are you? Why are you known as the SBR guru?
Thank you, James. Thank you, James. Well, I suppose I've been doing SBR all my life. It used to be called P2, it used to be called AFA, it used to be called FRE, it used to, whatever, you know. So yeah, I'm a little bit long in the tooth, but I keep learning new tricks. And one of the new tricks I've learned is what I do now is online teaching and rolling out of the SBR. You have to keep on learning as a student. And do you know what? Us ACCA members, CPD, we have to keep learning too. And I think that's what keeps me going. So that's me. Fantastic.
Well, I always recommend you, Tom. You've got a fantastic podcast. I put all of Tom's details, everyone, in the description of this video. Check it out. Really, really helpful. As you're saying, keeps Tom up to date, and they are really nicely explained as well. So if you're struggling on any areas like we're going to talk about in today's video for your ACCA SBR exam, they are definitely going to help. We're going to walk and talk through the examination, what you need to know, the key topics. So make sure you've got a pen and paper at the ready. It will be needed. So Tom, where are we going to kick off for today's recording? What are we thinking?
Well, I'm thinking that the exam has no choice. And I'm thinking that there is a wide syllabus, and I actually don't want to place an enormous emphasis on one thing that I say, because I think to pass this examination, it's important that you have a great deal of breadth. And I think breadth sometimes is more important than depth. There are some technical tricky things in the paper, so you will have some deep knowledge, but fundamentally you've got to be able to say something about everything, because if there's a 5-mark question or a 10-mark question and you know absolutely nothing and you write nothing, funnily enough, you will get no marks.
Yes, and with a 50% pass rate on SBR, if you're now whittling it down from I've got 100 marks to get 50 plus to then going, I've got 90 marks to get 50 plus, you're making your life a heck of a lot more difficult. And what would you say to students that want to maybe cut corners in the SBR sort of syllabus? What would be your advice on that?
Well, you know, you don't want to do it a second time, do you? You know, you don't want to rely on exam tips. You don't want to cut corners. You want to do a proper job. We're trying to be professional accountants, and professional accountants don't cut corners. but I didn't properly answer the question that you said in the first place, and maybe because you asked me what are the key areas, and I kind of ducked it because I said every area is key. However, if you look at the exam, there's a question 1, there's a question 2, there's a section B, so there's a bit of a rhythm, there's a bit of a structure. And question number 1, well, wasn't it your favorite topic area, James? Question number 1. Did you not like groups?
All of the ACCA material was my favorite topic, so I can't pick out one, I'm afraid. But groups, well, once you get the hang of groups and you understand the structure and how it flows through, they can be really good to get serious marks in the bank right the way at the start of an examination. But it comes with sitting down, doing them to time, past papers, and I'm also going to say on record, making mistakes and then learning from them as well, I would say.
Yeah, you got to go, haven't you? Yeah, so groups is one of those key areas. Now, what's interesting about SBR is that there is an overlap with FR. So your previous knowledge from FR will come in handy how to calculate goodwill, you know, how to do an impairment on goodwill. There are things, what is an associate, what is a sub. So there are certain areas when we're learning SBR that will feel a little bit like FR, but you're not going to be given an MCQ and you're not going to have to prepare a full set of accounts. You're going to have to explain. You're going to have to write.
Mm.
And if there are numbers, the numbers are 3 marks, 4 marks, and then alongside that is an explanation of what's going on. And there's some disposals and group overseas subsidiaries. There is some new stuff on groups. So I like it. It's the opening gambit of the paper.
Well, you've hit the nail on the head there as to this is the step up, and hence strategic in SBR. This is the standard that they expect. But just to be crystal clear for the viewers, how much of a jump up, because I get this question all the time, is financial reporting up to SBR? Say if you got 50 to 55 on financial reporting, what should you be thinking going into SBR?
Well, the higher mark you got for FR, clearly the better. The better it is going in, because there is an overlap. If you sat an SBR exam, I think with perfect FR knowledge, you'd probably get about 40, 35, 40. If you've got perfect FR knowledge, you've got a strong base there. So one of the things that I do in my courses is I don't necessarily assume too much FR knowledge, because I want the low-hanging fruit to be picked. I want the base to be built. And there's no point in talking about the reversal of an impairment loss or the measurement of an impairment loss when NCI is at proportional if we don't know what impairment means, if we don't know that. So it's very important. There's always going to be a mark or two in every SBR question, in every SBR scenario, which perhaps could be got by an FR student, and then we progress on. So there is an overlap, but we do need to kick on.
Oh yeah, well, especially, I mean, if you get a good question one under your belt from all your practice, then that is really going to help you into the exam. But then sort of what other aspects of question one, maybe leading on to question two, would you say are fundamental, paramount, that every SBR student needs to know or have an awareness of?
There's always a surprise, James. I mean, if someone asks me what's coming up in the exam, give me a tip. The sort of the jokey, but also the serious answer, a surprise. I guarantee there will be a surprise in the exam. So question one is a little bit integrated, because there's an A, there's a B, there's a C. And actually part C might be the group has got involved in wanting to report on integrated reporting. Can you suggest why they might want to do that? Or the group has got a deferred tax problem with losses carried forward. Can you discuss that? And actually, that's not to do with consolidation per se. It's just being tacked on as part C of a question. Sometimes I say there aren't 4 exams in the question. There aren't 4 exams in the exam. Sometimes I say really there are 10, because sometimes part C of the question is very, very independent from part A
and B.
Part A.
Yeah. I always
get a surprise.
I always used to have and say to myself that I'd actually expect an air of the syllabus to come up that I really wasn't that comfortable with or confident on. But because I've covered the syllabus and I've done past papers and I've got good exam technique, that I'm going to take a breath. If I see a question that I don't know, and then I'm going to go, right, let's think this through logically. Let's see what's in the scenario. Let's read the requirement through properly. Is there any buzzwords in there? Are they giving me any triggers that I can sort of latch onto? And then maybe if it's a 5-mark question, well, let's aim for those first 2. Okay, let's aim for those first 2, because
golden advice, not just for SBR, but for life. Yeah, golden advice. You pass or fail the exam, not on the strengths, but on your weaknesses, on being able to salvage a few marks. What James said there is absolutely spot on. To make it relevant to SBR, the framework. Because if you can somehow see a problem and relate it back to, is it an asset? Is it a liability? What is relevant information? And then you can relate it back in there. That's a way of starting. The other thing that James said there was, you know, if I can get 2 out of 5, it's okay. Yeah, 0 out of 5 is a bit of a no-no. Yeah. And if James was finding it difficult, if I'm finding it difficult, if you're finding it difficult, then everyone else is finding it difficult too. Just maybe, the markers might just be a little bit more generous here, But if you write nothing,
indeed,
no mark.
Just break it down, try and get those first few sentences, and also as well, professional judgment. So try to think about how it would be applied in a workplace or maybe where you work, because that again helped me out just to get those final little marks that could just tip you over the edge to get you the 50 plus. So these are just little bits of insights that I'd definitely be looking to apply.
Question 1, groups.
Mm-hmm.
Question 2, ethics. Now, when I say question 2 is on ethics, question 2 is not about an academic philosophical discussion about ethics. It has to be rooted in a practical scenario. So either the accountant's done the wrong accounting treatment, or they've employed their sister in a senior job who's not qualified, or they're breaking the ethical code. You love the 5 ethical pillars, don't you, James?
Oh, of course. I mean, it's the other thing is though that what really staggers me, and it's really important to get this across, is there is something wrong within that question for you to pick up on. This is another thing, that it's not just going to be it's all rosy nosy and it's all going to be great, and oh, this is a fully ethical situation on here where you've got to talk about integrity or confidentiality. You've got to apply it to the scenario. If you don't apply it to the scenario in SBR, then you might as well book for the reset, because that is one of the key triggers to passing.
And I think some students sometimes potentially lack the confidence to disagree with the written word. But fundamentally, an exam question, if the question says this has been treated as this financial instrument has been treated as equity, or this investment has been treated as an associate, probably, if you're not sure, probably that treatment is wrong. and what you've got to bring to the party is what is equity, what is associate, what might the alternative be, and the alternative might be worse. It might be debt showing higher gearing. It might be a subsidiary which is making losses and higher gearing, and therefore we want to kind of push them away and call them an associate. So yeah, having that there's a game with ethics. There's a game with ethics, and I know some struggle with it, but some find it fairly. Some get it. When you get it, there's a little bit of a game, and it is not about writing out there are 5 ethical pillars. We accountants must be objective. As James was saying, application.
Indeed, I completely agree. And then you're sort of now triggering back to me some of the buzzwords as to, well, if this happens, okay, and we have this treatment, well, is that going to be an overstatement or an understatement? And then you say to yourself, well, is that going to increase the net assets? Is it going to lower profit? Have we misallocated, got the wrong treatment? These are the little things that will then start to go through your mind. And then these are the marks, how they'll build up for you in the exam, especially questions 1 and 2.
And in those ethical questions, you often get a clue that you're told that it's someone's sister. Okay, family, related parties, could be nepotism, whatever. You get told the company's about to launch. Everyone's got share options. We didn't quite make budget last month. And so you're thinking, oh, okay, they're wanting to manipulate the profit up. So those clues, those words are quite precious, that the examiner takes an awful lot of time to correctly drop a little bit of a clue. So just as James was saying, look for those buzzwords, look for those little clues
it's looking for them and then applying them. So saying to yourself, have I got them in my answer? Have I referred to the sister, the finance director, whoever it may be, and the specific area? That is what they are looking for, and what the technique you need to be building in for the whole examination. So getting into the habit of writing down the names, the correct periods, these are the things that are just going to build up those marks a little bit more, and that's going to get you to that 50 plus on there.
Yeah, great. So question 1, groups.
Spot on.
Written, bit of numbers, bit of a surprise, something else in there. question 2 ethics applied in a scenario. So again, it could be around a pension scheme or something, but so you're going to have accounting standards in there. And then I think for section B, there's question 3 and question 4. And the headline, the simplest way of saying it, is accounting standards. There's just a lot on accounting standards because there are a lot of accounting standards.
Yes. Well, first of all, fundamentally, is understanding them. Okay. And they've got some great free resources on ACCA's website where they go through it and they list them out. So you have them all in one place. That is the first thing I always used to do as a student. Then the second thing was, right, I've got the list. I've then got some technical articles online that, put it this way, would they write these technical articles and put them online if they weren't going to be helpful? Okay, that's just the way I used to think about it. And yes, it takes time, and yes, they're a bit long, but trust me, they are very, very helpful. And yes, I'm sure you.
And sometimes, with on reflection, sometimes it's possible to look at a question in the exam and to think, when the examiner was writing that, I think he must have read that article beforehand, because you can kind of see how the answer is that part of the article in a way is flavoring the answer. So yeah, articles are great. I'm just going to do a quick plug here if I can momentarily, James.
Plug away. It's all good.
Podcast. I do a podcast series where I cover lots of the accounting standards and tips and tricks relating to SBR. They're all about 10 minutes long. You don't get to see my face, unfortunately, on the podcast. James has gone on the YouTube channel route. So podcast there. That's another way of listening. Whether you're going out for a jog, whether you're going out for a drive, just 10 minutes, and it's just a bit of a refresher. So standards. Now, if I could just talk very briefly about how standards are tested. We tend to study standards in silos. So today we're going to learn about foreign currency, and today we're going to learn about investment property, But it's perfectly possible that in an exam scenario, you've got a situation where we bought an investment property in another country that is now burnt down, and we've got an insurance claim against it. So the client walks in at work, you never know what you're going to be presented with. And certainly the client doesn't simply ask you, what's the definition of, client ever asked that. So they've got a practical scenario. Now in answering that, you've got a foreign currency transaction in the first place. You've got to know it's an investment property in the accounting treatment. The fire is an indicator of impairment because the asset is damaged. And then if you're making an insurance claim, you're looking at a contingent asset.
And then is it after the reporting period as well? All these sort of things.
Or if you look at the date, yes, the fire could occur afterwards and be a non-adjusting post-balance sheet event. So you've got ISA 21, you've got investment property ISA 40, you've got ISA 36 impairment, you've got ISA 37 provisions, you've got standards being applied. Now, because I'm a tutor, I happen to know the reference numbers to the standards. And when I see the examiner's answer, they put in there, sorry, it's they, not he, they put in there, the team put in there, you don't need to. There's no marks in the marking guide. There are no marks in the marking guide for knowing that it's ISA 37, the accounting standard on provisions and contingent assets. You can just say the relevant standard requires.
Yeah. I always used to find that if I actually wrote in my answer the actual standard, it did actually focus my answer in. And I actually went, whoever's marking this, if they see the correct standard and I've applied it correctly, they may go, this guy knows what he's on about. So it's up to you. I always found I used to actually apply it a lot better. But just to be crystal clear, in your answer, in your SBR exam, whoever's watching this around the world, you don't need to actually write it down and then actually say what it's about. It's all about the application to that scenario and applying the standard correctly. That is the key thing to get down in your notes, and what you need to do going away after this video. 100%.
Yeah. So groups, ethics, accounting standards. They're three massive pillars, but there's some other little things that are knocking around.
Oh, I mean, what do they like to test? Well, it is the changes in the actual current issues. And this is one of the other things which, by having a study buddy around you or being part of a group and having someone who works proactively with ACCA, like your podcast, Tom, and yourself, these are the things that, if they've written something timely, up to date, that's around your area, or things that are changing in the standards and in the syllabus, highly examinable. But what sort of current issues come your way or spring to mind?
Okay, let me be hypocritical, because I said earlier on I'm not into tips or anything like that. But current issues clearly features, and it's not necessarily the latest exposure draft, and there haven't really recently been a lot of IFRSs coming out. So sometimes it's to do with the interpretation of a standard.
Yeah.
And the fact that, intangible assets, ISA 38, for example, it doesn't work. It's a failed standard in the sense that it was written pre the internet. It was written in the last millennium. So all the brands and all the intangibles, it's not quite working. So that sort of thing. But specifically, sustainability reporting. It has come up, and it will come up because it's not going away. And under COP26, it's going to have a higher profile. And we need to get our regulatory bodies in order. And we need to understand why investors want that information, why companies are going to report that information, to the extent that it's voluntary, to the extent that it's comparable. And so it's a topic that will keep on coming up in slightly different forms.
Will there be updates on the technical articles on there as well?
Yes, there is one. There is more than one, James.
Oh, yes. Oh, I know.
There is more than one on the ACCA website. Check it out. My podcast, check it out.
Wow.
But just read a newspaper, or log on to a newspaper site and, look at sustainability. It is the issue of the day, the issue of the decade.
Massive.
Not the day,
I mean, I might have some bedtime reading tonight, and I might just go on to the technical articles just for the fun of it, Tom, after the inspiration of talking to you today. But we've also got to mention about the professional marks as well. Walk and talk us through what are the key elements there that come to your mind.
Okay, so in SBL, there's 20 professional marks, and this is not SBL, this is SBR. So in SBR, strategic business reporting, there are four professional marks. 2 will be earned in the ethics question, in question number 2 for sure. And really what those marks are for is linking the scenario specifically to and tying it to one of the ethical pillars. So saying in a direct way, the accountant has made a mistake. Making mistakes shows a lack of competence. Competence is a key ethical pillar. So you're spelling it out as to what's going on. The director has misled his colleagues. This is misrepresentation. This shows a lack of integrity. Integrity is a key ethical pillar. So you spell it, and that way you're getting the answer right, but you're also linking it to the pillar. I suppose the other way of getting those, the other way of thinking out about professional marks is what you are writing good enough to hand into a client?
Good way of thinking about it.
Coherent? Is it structured? Is it complete? Does it flow?
Yeah.
Does it show a bit of reflection?
Professional, I would say as well. It's I think little things like that. It'll improve the standard of your answer. I think that's where you'll read one sentence, you look back at your old notes, maybe if you've done a practice question on there, and saying, could I have been more specific? Could I have been more detailed on that? Could I use some key buzzwords, SBR buzzwords, or something from the requirement to really reinforce the point that I'm making. Because as a marker, when you look through sentences, you go, is that really worth a mark, or could they have added more on that? I'd say that is another big point that you need to be applying in your exam.
James, you just said a little buzzword there for me, something from the requirement. Now you're doing the exam as a CBE exam. And one of the things I always do and strongly recommend that you do as well is you control copy and paste and drop in the requirement into your word response area. So when you are typing, at the top of your screen is the requirement the whole time. And you're reading that requirement and you're looking at it and you're breaking it down. Does it have the word and in it? Because it means there's more than one thing if you're going to have to do the word and. Is it explaining, in which case you've got to write? So, you know, that's absolutely key.
Completely agree. And just to add on that, once you've got the requirement up at the top, as a little sort of guide to help you out, I used to have little buzzwords or little triggers just to plan my answer out. So it may be, for example, an 8-mark question where I'm probably going to have to put in 4 good points for 2 marks each, so that I'm going to write enough so that the marker's going to see 4 paragraphs and they're going to say 2 marks in the top all the way down. So I've got a chance of getting 8 out of 8, but I've got trigger words up at the top that maybe something to do with the non-current asset was an issue, and then maybe the valuation, and then maybe there was a year-end issue. So that structured my answer as I went through, and it just saves you time in the exam. And I'm not writing waffle and getting naught. I've got a focus point and I'm getting marks for it.
James has just brilliantly described how you plan an answer. Now, because I mean, I'm older than James, you can see that, but both of us would have done exams with pen and paper. Now the real world is on computer, you know, and therefore the exams reflect the real world. So one of the things you can do is you can take those 4 words, you know, there's something about PPE, there's something about year end, there's something, and you can key them in. And then by using the space bar, they become your subheadings. They get incorporated into your actual answer. Whereas in the old days, if you were writing out your plan, you'd have to rewrite it out again. So there is an advantage to being able to edit, and that skill of writing a plan and then incorporating the plan into your answer. So you just see, so the marker just sees the answer. They know it's being planned. That doesn't come to you for the first time in the middle of an exam. That comes to you because you've done it before.
Same with any workings or small calculations. Do them up at the top, get your own answer, show all your workings, your calculations, your formula on it, and then you've got your answer up at the top, and you say, right, that goes into my point in paragraph 2. And the marker can see how you've calculated it, apply your own figure, even if it's wrong. Well, if you've interpreted it correctly, you're going to get marks for it.
Even if it's wrong. Own figure rule. Even if it's wrong. The calculations these days in SBR are normally for like 2 marks, 3 marks, all right? But if you get the NCI wrong, by definition, the goodwill is going to be wrong. Or if you get the goodwill wrong, the impairment loss is going to be wrong. But you can get marks for doing the right thing to the wrong number. All right, that's why you show your workings.
Yeah, and imagine, I always used to think about it, imagine I've got to mark my own work as well, because if you've just got numbers dotted around and poor workings and poor format, and the marker's having to sort of fish out where it's all sort of coming from, that's not helping them at all in that sense. So this is where past papers come into it, your structure on top of that, and it all brings it all together, in my opinion.
Having a study buddy means you expose your answer to somebody else. You know, and whether that study buddy, and I'm a study buddy to my students effectively because I mark their work and I'm able to give them feedback. But even if you're not signed up with an ALP, who should be marking the work that you do to give you feedback, having a peer, having someone else, and can you understand their work, and can they understand your work? There's a mutual benefit from that process. As I say, ideally, you hand it in to someone like me who marks it and gives it back. But there is a need to reflect and to improve, because none of us are perfect. You're not perfect, are you, James?
I do my best, but obviously it never, for anyone who's ever watched any of my videos on my channel, none of them are perfect. So that's your answer, Tom, I'm afraid. But the other final thing that springs to mind that links into the key topics for the ACCA SBR exam is the ethics and professional skills module. Now, what would you say to a student who maybe hasn't done that before their examination?
It can only be useful to do the ethics and professional skills module. It's not mandatory to do it before you do your exams, but it's recommended and it's useful. It's particularly useful as you're transitioning from skills into the strategic professional, because there is a jump up and it will help you in your work environment. And of course, to get qualified, you need the 3 E's: the exams, the experience, and the ethics. And the ethics and professional skills module is best done before any strategic professional papers. And certainly it can only help. And it's for SBL, I know my colleague Sean Purcell, he goes mad for it, you know, because there's such an overlap there.
Yeah.
Such an overlap. It's beneficial. Beneficial.
In my opinion, if I had to go back and do SBR, SBL, 2 option papers again, 100% I'll do that ethics and professional skills module before I sit any of the exams. It's to my advantage, and the ACCA even put on their website that students who have done it before the exams are more likely to pass. So I'm there going to myself, oh, yes, it'd be quite nice to pass, wouldn't it? And anything to help me out, and I've got to do it anyway, so rock and roll.
Oh, James, that reminds me of other things that students can do to help themselves to pass.
Go for it.
Which is to use the practice platform. You know, it sounds very basic, and I hope I'm not being patronizing, but to go on to the practice platform, there's a blank workspace. So if you're working through the CAPLAN kit or the BPP kit or some other little exercise, you can actually have the question sort of as a PDF, as a print off, or on one screen, and then pretend and key in your answer, and you can save and print that answer and send it to your tutor for marking, or you can do past questions on the ACCA practice platform.
Honestly, it's we're talking about in today's video about the key topic areas, which we've covered really well. All these key areas you're going to have to know. But if you can't actually get that down for the market effectively, because what students fail to do is they actually don't get it down effectively. They waste time, and then SBR is already time pressured as it is. So if you're wasting time on the practice platform thinking, oh, I've got to sort of control V this, and then I've got to flick onto that bit and then flag this question, then come back to it, that could be 5-10 minutes gone. So
time is precious.
Completely agree with you, Tom, on there.
And James, I love my sport. I love my rugby and football, whatever. And when you look at who's playing at home, you always think the team who's playing at home has a slight advantage, that they're going to win, because they're familiar with their ground. They're familiar with their routine. And I think it's like that in the exam. You've got to make the ACCA practice platform your home ground for doing past exam questions and for doing work, so that you know how it works. Because if you do all of your homework on Excel and you do all of your work on Word, suddenly when you come to manipulate those windows and look for that functionality, you're going to feel like you're playing away. So as a student, you want to play at home. Make the ACCA practice platform your home.
Oh, you say good analogy on that. I like that. That's really good. I might have to steal that for some of my lectures.
That's fine.
We'll link it to Leicester City. But
I always try and get sport in any scenario.
Well, I think we had
As my poor children know.
I think we had Gareth Bale in one of our other videos, Tom. But
yes.
Are there any sort of final points, final ACCA SBR nuggets of information that you couldn't sleep tonight if you didn't tell our viewers right now? What springs to your mind that could really help them?
Try and enjoy it. Try and plan it. Take it seriously, but you don't have to know 100% of 100% in order to pass this exam. You have to understand it, and it's not a marathon. You know, you can't the week before train for a marathon. You can't the week before suddenly shed weight. You know, this is a serious professional qualification, and for many people, it's the first they do at the strategic professional level. For many people, you have a choice, but for many people, it's a gateway, which is why we've talked about ethics and professional skills, and why we've strayed into general study techniques. Because if you can get the right habits of studying and looking at the resources and doing the questions and you can get the right habits and you can pass an exam, you then know what it takes, and then you've got momentum on to the rest of the qualification.
Let that sink in. Honestly, it is a tricky exam, but once you get into the hang of it and you put in the time and you do questions to time as well, getting used to the practice platform, you're going to be spot on, and just learning from your mistakes. There will be things that come up in the exam that you're not going to know about, but I hope the tips in today's video. And thank you so much, Tom, for your time, for your insights
pleasure,
today.
James.
And as I said to everyone who's watching, all of Tom's details, the podcast, how to contact him on LinkedIn, and his Instagram, I've given him another plug there as well, is all in the description. And I'd just like to say best of luck with your upcoming SBR exam. Be sure to share this video with any friends who you know have got it coming up. And if you have enjoyed it, leave us a comment at the bottom what you thought of it, and give the video a massive like as well. I hope you've enjoyed it. But
I've enjoyed it, James. Thank you very much for having me.
Absolute pleasure, Tom. We should do some more. The time flies by. But as always on that bombshell, we'll see you next time. Cheers.